There's a tie-in, of course. We want to talk a little bit about what are the so-called rational expressions. You may not know what that is, but here's what it is. Basically, the word ratio is there. And think ratio, kind of think fractions. Yeah, we're talking about fractions here of the polynomial variety. Polynomial fractions is, I guess, one way we could kind of describe it. Yeah, here's an example. X plus 7 over x minus 2. It's a rational expression. Ratio of polynomials is what we've got. Now, the polynomial can be linear like that. You can have x squared polynomials, and they don't have to even match up. You can have an x squared over an x or vice versa. Matter of fact, you just have a number over, a trinomial, something like that. All those are examples of so-called rational expressions. So that's what we're talking about here for a little bit. Rational expressions. Okay? Now, first thing out of the box, let's mention is with rational expressions, there comes some restrictions on what's called the domain. I also like to call them excluded values. I think the book will use both kind of terminology there. Restrictions on the domain or excluded values. Yeah, when we get these expressions, for example, the x plus 7 over x minus 2, what does x stand for there? Numbers, right? X is the variable playing the role of numbers. So I can plug in 1, I can plug in 10 for x, whatever I want to. Except there is a value that I can't plug in for x. So that's what we're talking about. Excluded values of the variable x here. Do you see here that x cannot be 2? Why can't x be 2? Can't divide by 0. You can't have a 0 value in your denominator, right? And if I plug in x to be 2 there, 2 minus 2 is 0. Now the top is 9, but the bottom is 0, and that's bad. Can't have a denominator of 0. So that's what we're talking about. The bottom here can't be equal to 0, and so x, our variable, cannot equal 2. So 2 is the excluded value, we would say. Two is an excluded value. Now, what about the negative 7? Wouldn't that make the top 0? Is negative 7, would that have to be excluded? No. The top being 0 is okay. Negative 7 is not excluded. The top being 0, that's fine. It's just that the denominator can't be 0. Okay? So we have these excluded values. Now, when I come across then, x minus 3 over 5x minus 9. What's the excluded value there? Well, some excluded values are easier to eyeball in than others. This one may not be one you can just see right offhand, but just know this. To find the excluded values, since the excluded value is what makes the denominator 0, to find the excluded value, set the denominator equal to 0, the bottom, and then solve accordingly. Yeah, if you want to find your excluded values and you can't exactly tell what it is, just set the denominator equal to 0 and solve that equation. Here, I'd just add 9, divide by 5, wouldn't I? Whatever that solution comes out is your excluded value. X is 9/5 or 9/5 would have to be excluded because that would make, plug it in, the denominator be 0. Okay? So it asks for excluded values, just set the denominator equal to 0. Now, one other one, real quick here. What about this one? 3x minus 4 over x squared plus, I don't know, 5x plus 6. What's the excluded values there? We'll set the denominator equal to 0, right? And yeah, this is a quadratic equation. Just talked about that. Factor it. This one is a little tricky. One reason I do it. 6 on the end, 5 in the middle. What are you thinking? 3 and 2? 3 and 2 for 6, yeah. 3 times 2 gives me 6. 3 plus 2 gives me 5. Okay, there you go. So in this case, then set those individually equal to 0. And what we get is 2 answers. Subtract 3, you got -3. Subtract 2 on this one, you got -2. Yeah, you've got 2 excluded values. Both of those are my excluded values, or that's restricted values. 2 of them. Okay, so it just depends on your denominator how many you get. If it's linear, you get 1. If you got x squared, you got two excluded values. Okay?
So you're not trying to do nothing on the top.
Right. The top, nothing, no problems there. Like over here, 3 is not excluded because the top equals 0. That's not bad. It's just the bottom being 0. You can't divide by 0. Punch it in on your calculator. Try dividing anything by 0. It just doesn't work. 0 divided by a number is okay, but something divided by 0, that's bad.
So is that kind of like solving the equation by saying every number works except for...
That's what we're saying, yes. We're saying everything x works except for these 2 values. I could do x is 1, I could do x is -1. Or, yes, exactly what we're saying. Okay. All right.